Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. Today we're doing a review of a review, which I think is funny. Um, I wanted to come at this as blank slate. I didn't want to pre-watch it because I've done that in the past, and I kind of already knew what they said and everything. So I kind of want to come at it from I've never heard this argument put this way before. I know the general idea of the argument, but I wanted to put it together as more of a, is this a legitimate argument? If that makes any sense. I don't want it to be too over the top with my normal takes, and we'll just kind of see how it goes, and hopefully they'll say something useful. From what I've seen, I'm not particularly anticipating anything particularly amazing. Now, on this video, the description title is, "The Second Story is a conservative media critic channel who hates everything modern. She's wrong. In this video, I break down exactly how." I've never once heard The Second Story, which I've covered a lot of her videos, or at least like 3, 4, whatever. I've never heard her referred to as a conservative media critic. Maybe I just missed those videos or whatever, but I'm sure I'm going to see a couple of the videos mentioned by this video here. So I guess we'll just run with it, more or less. So here we go.
About a week ago, I stumbled upon a video by a channel I had never seen before. It was called How Modern Writing Schools Make Terrible Writers, deliberately. I've always enjoyed writing fiction myself, so even though I don't have any desire to go to a writing school, I thought I'd check it out to see if there was any useful advice. I ended up watching about 10 minutes of it before disappointedly deciding to click off. I was hoping for some insight about something I was genuinely interested in, but the video was pretty much just some woman directionlessly complaining. Well, I forgot about it for a few days, but then...
All right, I'm going to point out, I've watched several of her videos, not just the ones I've reviewed myself. I've never thought directionless is the thing that would describe Hilary. Hilary Lane's the YouTuber who runs The Second Story. She's an author. I find this to be incredibly weird, because this is like me and this person, I guess his name's Hayze, having watched similar videos with the same content creator and coming to completely polar opposite reactions or understandings of what was happening. I don't fully comprehend how you can get it's directionless when everything I've heard her say has been very straightforward, and it's been very obvious to what she's hinting at when she hints at something, or if she just says it blatantly in the open, you just have kind of an idea of what's going on. It's not disguised. So I'm not sure where it's directionless, and I'm like, but it's pretty directed, comes from.
And the YouTube algorithm showed me a video by Anthony Gramaglia about her channel, and it was... wow. The video he was responding to was so much worse than I was expecting. She cherry-picked examples, completely misrepresented Guillermo del Toro's work, said that all villains should be ugly, strawmanned common writing advice, lied about the content...
I watched that video. I don't know where you got that from. Pretty sure, if I recall correctly, it's been a hot minute, but it was more of the turning of the head, but without fully fleshing out the actual necessary parts. So, and this thing is like, the real monsters are the humans. Well, why are the humans the real monsters? Is it because they don't understand? Are they inconsistent with their character? Are they so poorly written that they are forced to appear as bad, but they're not really bad, or they're laughably bad in how they're portrayed? Like, there's lots of ways you could take that, and this is a Collider thing video going off about, like, oh, it's the real ones of this, and that may or may not be actually the case. Now, does she think that all monsters should always be bad guys? I doubt it. I think you can make a monster like a Beauty and the Beast kind of sense, where you can make the monster a compelling character and a good guy, and the human can be the bad guy. Does not mean that every monster is a good guy. It's all in the portrayal, it's all in the motive, it's all in how the plot is going to deal with that kind of conflict. So I'm not sure why this is just instantly like, oh no, it's this, it's this, it's this. How are you coming to this conclusion? You haven't told me how you came to this conclusion about Hilary.
Contents of articles in the papers of college students did the literary equivalent of complaining about the kids these days by saying that all villains are pitiful and impotent.
I mean, calling a demonic entity sexy means you're not taking a character seriously. Because if a demonic entity is coming across as sexy, and I'm not talking like a demonic entity dressed like a normal person and looks in a more of a simulacrum type body and looks human or whatever, and they just happen to have the perfect face, the perfect hair, the perfect body, the perfect shape. They're either super manly or super feminine, depending upon if they're portraying a man or a woman. And I'm not saying that. I'm talking like, hey, it's a demon with horns and hair and it's got a big dong, therefore sexy. It's like, that's kind of disturbing on many levels, not gonna lie.
And how it was so much better back in the early 20th century, and did it all while being unbelievably condescending to the millions of people who are fans of the popular works she criticized. These clips weren't out of context either. Gramaglia played clips of her speaking for a good 20 or 30 seconds sometimes, and really allowed her to make an argument. It made me think, so far the only two videos I've seen of her are basically her just shitting on things for seemingly no reason. What about the rest of her channel? Is it different? And,
Okay. No reason's a bit of a stretch, because every video I've seen of hers, she gives pretty compelling reasons, and they're usually pretty detailed. And it usually comes down to the writer or the audience. The audience is eating it up because they're probably more degenerate in some of those, like some of the videos, like the one about, romance type novels and whatnot that are coming out, like Milking Farm and all that jazz. And then you have the author, where I would argue things like Stephen King with like sewage children orgies. It's not really there for the plot. There's other ways to make it go away. It just doesn't seem very essential to the story in any shape or form. It's not showing how bad a person is. Like in Wheel of Time, you have Padan Fane. Padan Fane is a guy who's a mixture where he's been tainted more or less by the Dark One. So he's got the Dark One's basically claw stuck into him. And then he also runs into Shadar Logoth, or Arid Hole, if you want to be more lore accurate, and basically just gets a little dip of another evil that counters the Dark One's evil. But they're both evil, so he comes out basically being double evil. And we're like, okay, well, he's just got this guy's evil, he's got this guy's evil, what's the big deal? And then he goes and basically grapes a mother and her young daughter, like young daughter, and then feeds them to the Trollocs. So when you take a body of a human, chop it up, and throw it into a cook pot for Trollocs to eat. One, great. Pretty vile, pretty violent, pretty not okay. And then he's going to just murder them and have them fed to his soldiers. That tells me how vile this person is. He's already beyond basically everything else, but he's like a step above even some of the most evil guys working for the Dark One. Like he's in a league of his own at this point because of the double step evil. He's got a little bit of everything. He's got control of the Dark One's stuff, and he's got control of the other evil stuff, which is mostly like suspicion and pulling like a Grima Wormtongue on people and having them turn against their own kind and whatnot. Like he's double evil. But how do you know this? It's because it's described and prescribed to him. He is the one who's doing this. That's how you know he's bad juju. Like that's how you know he's bad dude. But some of these other things, they don't have that. They're just saying weird crap. Like Oh, let's continue.
No, it really isn't. All 6 of her most recent videos are her spending over half an hour hating on all of modern writing. Like,
It's almost like modern writing's trash. Shocked, I tell you, shocked. Like, I have not found very many modern books that I'd be like, yeah, I actually am interested in reading this, because all I do is I dread the very moment that it's going to happen to be absolute trash. I've wasted money, I've wasted time, which to me is just as valuable, if not more, than money. And I wasted it because some moron doesn't know how to freaking write, because they're using modern proclivities in a book based upon the ancient era. They don't have modern proclivities in the ancient era. It's pretty obvious. Talk to a historian, talk to a freaking Assyriologist, an Egyptologist, Babyloniologist, whatever, Mesopotamiologist, whatever. Like, talk to these people. They're not going to tell you, oh yeah, they said, I just did that with my freaking mind. They didn't say things like that back then, so stop putting in that crap. It doesn't matter if the audience is modern. It matters on what the story makes sense. Because even a modern person is going to be like, yeah, that they didn't say that back then. I can't imagine why they didn't make that, because it's not something that is sensical.
all of it. One of them is even complaining about degeneracy. Okay, but
Are you not allowed to complain about degeneracy now? If most of a book, or I guess even not a book, if a most of the content of a film, a TV show, a book, a music album, a game, whatever it might be, if the most of it is degenerate, then calling it degenerate is just being accurate about what you're talking about. How does that exactly equate to whatever it is you're upset about? Like, you're upset that I can't believe they called modern works degenerate. Oh, it's almost like they're degenerate.
surely there's got to be some valuable criticism in here somewhere, right? I thought.
There was.
Not knowing what I had gotten myself into, I decided I would sit down and watch her videos on heroes and fantasy, since they're both topics I'm pretty attached to and know a decent.
I'm gonna go out on a massive limb, and you don't know what a hero is, or even the original definition of hero, because most people apparently don't. And I'm gonna go on a limb, you don't understand fantasy either, because you're worried more about modern proclivities.
Amount about. What I experienced next was over an hour of some of the dumbest, most baseless criticism I have ever seen. In this video, I'm
You haven't watched very much, then.
going to be covering her video on heroes. Modern heroes are weak and boring. I decided to split this topic
Shocker. They are.
into 2 smaller videos since the subjects weren't too related and I talk about them for pretty long. But please go watch the other one after this if you're interested. With all that said, let's get right into it. Oh, also, if it wasn't clear already, nobody harassed this woman, okay? I think you should unsubscribe from her YouTube channel and stop watching her.
I don't think you should tell people what they should or should not do. I don't think it's my job to tell people to unsubscribe from you, not like your film or your videos or whatever, just because I disagree with you. That's childish. It's only if it's like blatant, like if you're actually asking to like put a bounty on Hassan, then maybe it's not safe to be following your content for FBI purposes. But I'm not gonna tell anybody to not watch you. Like, the whole point is to watch somebody's content of the opposite opinion or of a different opinion or anything like that, so you can actually generate a better concept of whatever the topic is that you're interested in. That's the point. If you can't dialogue about it, then why are you making a video about this except to virtue signal? There's no point in virtue signaling, because your virtue signal will just show half of the people, oh, I'm virtue signaling. The other half is, oh, he's just a loser who thinks he's going to get brownie points for complaining. What? Like, give some actual criticism. Like, say some specific lines. Don't be so freaking general and vague. But I'm assuming you're just in your intro, so I'm going to let that slide, because I'm going to assume you're going to come up with something decent for me to understand what you're talking about, because apparently there's a lot of people who have a similar mindset.
Videos if you're doing that. But for the love of God, don't go out of your way to harass her. It's wrong. So Hilary Lane,
I agree.
that's her name, starts by laying out what she thinks the 3 problems with modern heroes are. She says the writer assumes that they cannot have any significant flaws and have to be as or more heroic than the other characters and the writer. Number 2.
That is actually literally like what modern writing is. Now, keep in mind, when she says modern writing, she's not referring to things written in the 90s or the early 2000s. She's referring to things now, modern. Yes, technically the 90s and the early 2000s are modern, but they're not same. They're not constructed the same or written the same or characterly driven the same as they are now. Now it's entirely different. It's like 2016 was a bad year when Disney starts putting out like the Star Wars trilogy sequel that are terrible Star Wars, and we just have boss characters out of freaking nowhere for no reason whatsoever. That's bad.
2, heroes don't go through arcs anymore. And number 3,
They don't. They're at the end of their arc at the beginning of the story. Do you read books? I'm concerned.
the hero must represent the writer's opinions of the real world.
Well, okay, let's put this into perspective. You have a writer. They want their character to always be morally correct, and therefore that character can never do anything that they deem to be morally incorrect. And thus, they have to be the virtue signaling character, arbiter, or whatever, in their story. Of course they're going to do this, because apparently all these authors now, all they do is write one-dimensional characters, and they're not even writing characters, they're writing themselves into a character, and then that character is just them doing what they do, or what they would wish they could do, and basically motivated by the writer's beliefs. It's not a character, it's a caricature of themselves. This isn't a hard concept to understand.
So we're about a minute into her video, and I'm already about to tear out a new one. Alright.
But you haven't specified anything other than those 3 hero points, but you didn't even, critique them, you just mentioned them.
Let's get started with her first point. First of all, the flawless hero, or the near-perfect hero, is actually more of an older concept. Sure, Greek heroes were almost always flawed, but besides them, a huge portion of fictional and mythological characters are portrayed as pretty much pure good guys. Robin Hood, King Arthur, most of the time, Tang San Song from Journey to the West, Dante as Dante, or hell, Jesus of Bible fame. Beowulf was basically the world's first Mary Sue. His epic poem is...
They have flaws. Or it's being told from a perspective of somebody else and they're cooking them up. It's never written directly as that person. It's not like these characters always succeed. It's not that they always do the right thing. It's not that they never have any conflict to deal with. They have aspects about them and their story that are told a particular way. Sometimes they're a legend told by people later on about that person to make their people look good. That's not happening in modern storytelling in any shape or form. And if somebody's writing a story about Robin Hood or King Arthur, we don't know what actually happened, necessarily speaking, in those instances, and we don't know the specific, for one, which story of Robin Hood. There's a million of them at this point. Which story of King Arthur? There's a million of them at this point. Which story are you referring to? Which part are you explicitly pointing out instead of just saying this story in general? Well, what about the story? Because if you're going through this whole thing and he's okay, well, he had to train, he was the best archer they've ever seen, and therefore, boom. Well, how old is he? Well, he's in his 30s. Oh, okay. In your 30s, and you're an archer, historically speaking, you had to train from when you were young to have the shoulder and arm strength to be able to pull back a really heavy poundage bow. Well, logically follows is that if the audience is aware of what is required to become that good of an archer, you don't just pick up a bow and hit bullseye 3 times where your arrow splits the arrow in front of it, which splits the arrow in front of it. You don't just do that from picking it up. It's implied that there is some form of training involved with that. But if you take a character like, say, Rey, who's never picked up a lightsaber and all of a sudden beats a obviously way more trained, violent, murderous person, Sith, then it makes no sense to say, that totally makes sense. She had no training. She just picked it up and just flailing around. There's no freaking way Kylo Ren would have lost that fight if it was written well. It wasn't written well because she has to win. Why? Because the writers are making her win, not because she deserves to win, not because she went through trials and tribulations to come to this place and then win. No, it's just she has to win. She fixes the Millennium Falcon without ever seeing a Millennium Falcon type ship. Like, ever. She happens to go to the right place, finds the right thing, replaces it. She bypasses the compressor. She knows that ship better than the person who owns the ship. None of it makes sense. None of it. That's the difference in the storytelling aspects. One, it's presumed Robin Hood has a kind of a war, it's like a war hero story and whatnot, comes back from the war, depending on which variation you're looking into, and he's got combat experience. He has experience being an archer or being a swordsman or whatever the case might be. He has experience with these things because he was just doing them professionally, and now he's coming back and everything's gone sideways and he has to kind of fix the things up, but in process he becomes an outlaw and has to do all this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but you don't have to show in those older tales, because the purpose of the tales were not the same as the purpose of tales now. Like, stories here now are written to be more full, then they're built more to be more of a myth. It's more to be like, look what our people did. Look at all these things they've achieved. That's a little different than writing an entire fictional thing completely made up with no cultural background or anything, and then coming up to this conclusion. They're not equal.
It's mostly just several hundred pages of people going, wow, Beowulf's so cool. And then
Beowulf has flaws.
Beowulf going, yes, I am cool. And then doing some sort of superhuman feat like tearing the arm off a giant or holding his breath for 20 hours straight. You don't really see this sort of writing anymore outside of bad fanfic.
Almost like it was written as a poetic extraction. Oh my gosh.
Or isekai animes. But I repeat myself. Point is, one of the most common pieces of modern writing advice is to give your characters flaws. And it's advice that most writers take. That wasn't really true back.
Why are you comparing ancient writing with modern writing when we're talking about modern writing compared to just good writing in general? From a modern time period, but not necessarily the modernist ability. Like, what is your goal here?
In the day, a lot of classical and medieval writers from across the world wrote stories that were almost completely uncritical of their protagonists, and many of them are still famous today. And that's not even getting into the literal thousands of counterexamples there are for modern writing. She says that modern writers don't let their heroes have significant flaws, while completely ignoring that grimdark is one of the most popular genres nowadays.
But okay. For one, I don't think she's referring necessarily to the Eastern mangakas as typically on a higher scale of writing than, say, Western. But you're categorically taking two very polar opposite writing styles and pushing them together as if they are the same, when she's clearly not implying in any shape or form that all writers everywhere from every cultural background and everything are the same. She's referencing the ones she is in contact with when she goes to her local bookstore, specifically of the mindset that she's looking into. When you go look in the fantasy section, you're not finding terribly large amounts of Japanese writers, Korean authors. You get the idea. You do find a lot of American, a lot of European, those kind of authors. They all happen to have something in common. The West. Or I guess in your case, the West. My West, your West. But grimdark doesn't... Okay, just because grimdark exists does not mean that they don't have flaws or that they do have flaws or whatever. Everybody everywhere should have some shape or form of a flaw or a beginning in which they can become better than. Guts has flaws. What's the point? He's also not written by the West. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
where the protagonists are almost universally horrible people who do horrible things. Huge influential properties like a...
Yes, but Grimdark is designed for everyone to be terrible. That's the point of Grimdark. Warhammer 40k, everyone's bad. There are no good people. But some are better than others, is the mentality.
Song of Ice and Fire and Berserk got famous because of their questionable or even evil main characters.
Except Berserk, again, was written a very particular way by a very particular mangaka in a very particular non-West area in a non-West style. Song of Fire and Ice was way too hyped, in my opinion, but nah.
Does this part of her point imply that Grimdark writers must all...
And also, in those stories, there were people who had moral flaws but still wanted to better themselves. They arose to the occasion, as you might say. They're all just writing normally. Doesn't mean they're great writers. Doesn't mean they're bad writers. It just means they're at least writing something. What she's competing for people's attention for is to understand just because you're writing a story doesn't mean you're writing it well. And here's the problems with what's going on currently in a general sense. It does not mean every single story is. It's pointing out these things. So anytime you read a book and it's like, oh, all of Hilary's points, bing, 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 they're all hitting off like red flags. That's a problem. And when you're reading something and it's not hitting those, it's like, that's good. That means this is a good author. This means this author is aware of how to actually write. That's the difference here.
Will be worse than their protagonists? Is George R.R. Martin an incestuous murderer just because one of his protagonists is? Did Kentaro Miura kill children
Oh my gosh, did you really bring up this scene? He didn't kill somebody because he did it on purpose. He did it as a reaction. Oh my gosh. How am I, the non-anime guy, I could just ask Crimson to come in on this part, but oh my gosh. These are not the same thing. One was intentional, the other was not intentional. Did he want to do it in the tower? Yes. Did he want to do it in Berserk? No. These are not comparable. I don't know why I'm yelling.
just because Guts did a few times? Obviously.
Was it morally correct for Guts to do it? No. Was it morally on purpose? No.
No. And these are two of the most popular pieces of fiction ever. So clearly this whole thing about modern writers not wanting to give their protagonists flaws is complete nonsense. And trust me, this point is going to be very ironic if you decide to watch the other video I'm making on her channel. So that's point number one. Moving on to point number two. Oh, what? I'm not even going to entertain this one. Have you watched a...
I'm not going to entertain this one. So you don't have a problem with it, is what you're saying.
...single Disney movie in the past 50 years, Lane? And the third one... Okay, let's put a pin in the third one.
You know... Okay. Category error number 6 billion. Modern authors does not equate to modern era. Just because Disney did it 30-some years ago does not equate to current time period. We don't have the same type of writers. Anybody with half a brain cell understands this concept. The writers from then and the writers from now, nowhere comparable in terms of how they did things. It's not even close, guys. This is like a race. One of them is not catching the other. It's not even close. But then again, people are typically dumber now compared to they were then, so it does add up.
We'll come back to it later. So that's 1 minute in. Not a great start, but hey, surely she'll end up...
Are you going to play anything she actually says and then comment about what she says, or are you just going to freaking just trying to personally customize everything to make it sound like it's a good point? Because personally, I'd rather hear your actual take about something she actually says, not just a point. Because yes, she could say a point on a bullet point, and then you misrepresent it because that's not what she's entirely saying, or she's saying it in a particular way that you're twisting it away from that. I have no idea what you're saying because you're not saying anything except, haha, this is terrible.
Giving some examples to justify these points, right?
Like, I'm 5 minutes in, and I've learned absolutely nothing except that you don't know the difference between categories.
Foreshadowing is a literary device, but before we get into her justifications and examples, or lack thereof, we have to hear her definition of what a hero
You haven't let her speak at all! Dadgummit. You haven't let her speak at all, so how do I know what she's going to say? I have to go back and literally watch the video, but I'm reacting to this live so I can get the best options from you, because I want to hear your arguments versus her arguments. But so far, you haven't given any of her arguments. You've just given a persona of her arguments that may or may not be accurate because you haven't actually played her. Her voice is not like some unspeakable thing. You can let her speak for herself. Please do so.
is in the first place. And the definition she gives is terrible. The first thing she
Is terrible. Play clip that has her viewpoint so we can look at it and say, you know, that is terrible, or that's not really that terrible. Like, you're doing her bullet points, not what she's actually saying, where the nuance is. I want the nuance, because without the nuance, I don't know if you're just blowing smoke out of everyone's rear ends and just saying, see, I was right the whole time. Well, were you? I have no reason to believe you're being correct or even being genuine about your concerns with her, because you haven't let her actually speak yet. Literally, not once have I heard her voice in your video.
cites is an AI overview definition of what the word means. And while I hate AI, this is honestly a decent definition. Lane then goes on to call this definition
No. Stop what the Lane goes on to say if you won't let her actually just say it. If you want to TLDR it, that's one thing. But let her actually say stuff so we can see the nuance, because I can't read lips. I'm just going to be honest, I cannot read lips. So if you're going to just decide to say, I'll speak for her instead of letting her speak for herself, I'm going to question your ability to translate properly. Because nuance is lost on a lot of people, and usually when I hear the nuance from that person's mouth specifically, I can better understand what she's saying, but I can't speak for everyone else. So if you have a different version of nuance from what she's saying, I want to hear that nuance, but you haven't let her speak, nor commented on what she has spoken, only on bullet points, which are very, very simple forms and are not the nuance nor the context.
both weirdly specific and vague, which is nonsense? Like, yeah, of course it is. That's how definitions of broad concepts work. They provide strict guiding edges.
So they usually aren't, one, a bad person, two, somebody you would look up to. But can still have a bunch of different personalities, be admirable in different ways. If we're referring to a hero, here's a fun news flash for those who are not aware. The Greek term for hero, the original, more or less, usage of the term, romantically speaking wise, is a person who overcomes a feat. That's it. Which means a villain can be a hero. Or if you're not satisfied with the term villain, a bad person can be a hero because all they did is do something that was greater than themselves. Boom, they're now a hero. That's it. That's literally it. The modern concept of a hero or heroism is not the same as it was back in the olden times. How's that for nuance?
To the concept while still allowing a ton of gray area in between where people can interpret the definition how they want. So then she tosses out her perfectly good definition and goes all the way back to a dictionary from 1933.
More accurate to older stuff, sure.
That's right. For this video, she's going to use a definition that's 92 years out of date. And what's
out of date? Definitions for words don't just cease to exist. Oh my gosh. You're one of those people, aren't you? We can just update definitions whenever we want to because who cares about accuracy and everybody communicating on the same level? Me, I do. I care about that because when I'm talking to somebody, I want them to understand what I'm saying and I want to understand what they're saying because otherwise we're going to talk past each other and there's no point in communicating with somebody if that's what's going to happen. Duh. Is this your first time? Like, have you ever communicated with somebody and never had different definitions for things? You know why that is? Because somebody updated the definition. Merriam-Webster Dictionary. We don't use what would be considered, as from a word perspective, corrupted literature. We use accurate literature. The older you go back, you could find out what the term actually meant. For example, the term gay, used in the form of gaily, etc., or queer, or anything like that, olden times meant entirely different things than what they mean today. Gay meant happy. Queer meant strange. Ironically, both of these were in The Lord of the Rings. Huh. Shocking. But they're not used the way they are now. They took those terms, updated them to become the modern terms. But now we can't say, I'm feeling pretty gay today, and mean it in, I'm feeling very happy today. They don't say that. What they do say is, I'm a homosexual man today. Notice the difference. Nothing to do with the original definition, and there was no reason for that definition to be updated. You just started, not you specifically, but people just started taking this word and utilized it in a totally different manner, and when people are surprised they come up with a different outcome. Well, yeah, I mean, if you just start using the wrong word in the sentence in a place where it should be another word, well, of course you're going to have a lot of people misunderstanding what you're saying. And then enough people go, oh, no, it actually means this. I'm like, okay, so I looked up in the dictionary and you're wrong. Ironic how that is. Oh, no. Here's this dictionary. It's in this one. The dictionary for modern interpretations of things because we don't know how to create new words. Interesting dictionary you have here. Oh, look, there it is. It does say it the way you said. Are people this stupid normally? Like, is this... I mean, I already know the answer to that. Oh my gosh.
What's even funnier is that you might notice the definitions 2 and 3 of these 5 are basically exactly like the definition she just tossed out. So not only did she have to go back almost a century to get a definition she liked, but she also had to throw away 2 of the other 4 definitions.
And you've given us zero context or nuance to understand or believe you for any reason whatsoever.
In that same dictionary because they were inconvenient. Instead, she focuses on number 4, being the main character of a story. Now, if you know...
Because that's the context. Do you not know how context works? Is that the problem here? Is the entire video just, I don't understand context and therefore I'm going to laugh and point at everybody else who doesn't understand the same as me, or that does understand it and I don't, and then for ha 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 ha, and okay?
Absolutely anything about literary definitions, you should know that in the modern day, this isn't really true. For the past few decades, the word we've used for the main character is protagonist. Well, hero is specifically reserved for characters who have done good deeds. So yeah, the terms overlap a ton, but they're not the same thing. For example, just look at Punisher, or Death Note's Light Yagami.
Punisher is a hero, just saying.
Both characters are the protagonists, the main...
Light is not.
...main characters, but neither of them are good or heroic. Light in particular...
What? Are you dirtying Frank Castle, my boy, with saying he's not good? What do you mean he's not good? Tell me you've never read a Punisher comic in your life without telling me you've never read a Punisher comic in your life.
...is a literal serial killer. You can...
Yes, he's a bad dude. He's not a hero. Congratulations, you defeated your own purpose.
See inside his head and understand why he's doing what he's doing, but the writers make it very clear that his actions are selfish, immoral, and evil. He's something we call a villain protagonist. Yeah, so protagonist and...
Okay, Overlord's way better than Light. Not even gonna go on with that. Oh my gosh.
Hero are not the same thing. Okay, it's only been 4 minutes, and so far Lane has generalized...
It's only been 7 minutes, and so far you've said a whole lot of nothing except nonsense.
Both modern writers and classical writers, and done a terrible job of defining a basic concept.
You've not even let her speak, let alone freaking give nuance.
It can't get much worse from here, can it?
It's already worse because you don't know how to let a person actually talk. Like I'm letting you talk, holy frick.
Well, get ready, because she spends the next 14 entire minutes
I bet we're going to get an hour out of you and you not even let her speak, where I can actually hear her voice and tell what pitch it is.
Trying to state a point that could have come across in less than one, all while only using a single bad example. Here's the argument.
That's subjective of you, and I would like to point out that just because you personally think it's bad does not mean it is, in fact, bad. That's where nuance and context comes into play, and you've given me neither to work with. I can't even hear her nuance and context in your video to know if your nuance, or lack thereof, or context, lack thereof, is even related to what she's saying, because for all I know, you're making up a whole bunch of BS. And I did watch that video, I just don't remember, because it was like a year ago or something. It was a long time ago. And yes, a year is a long time for me. I mean, last week was a long time for me. You're going off the idea and the concept that she's wrong because you think she's wrong, and that how could anyone ever take multiple points, 14 minutes of points, when you could do it in 1 point? Yet somehow, magically speaking, I do this with a minute video. I could turn it to 7 hours. Because I give so much nuance, so much context. You're not even giving me that to work with. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I'm going to read it out just to avoid
Stop reading it! Let her freaking speak!
any sort of potential copyright thing, but
there's no copyright. Oh my gosh, fair use exists. That's what I'm doing right now.
This is completely verbatim. Like it or not, the fictional representation of heroism, virtue, and morality
and just let her do it.
In media is necessarily reliant on the writer's understanding of heroism, virtue, and morality.
Correct. Why is this correct? Because if the writer doesn't understand heroism, virtue, and morality, then the entire media is going to be completely kaput. Because the medium doesn't understand those things as much as the writers. And if the writers don't understand them, then of course people are going to be confused.
In these days, very few people, never mind writers, really understand these things. And even if they do, even if most writers could, to some degree, be considered moral individuals, that doesn't mean they will understand the immense moral complexities that they attempt to write for their character.
Also true, because I can be a moral person, but it doesn't mean I understand every moral possibility from what the characters are going to be interacting or going through themselves. But even more so, I have to be able to write a character morally different from myself to make interesting characters. You might have a character who's okay with stealing things as long as it helps the poor people. Okay. I don't steal things just because it helps poor people. That's a difference. Maybe you think I'm going to make a character and they're going to go out and they're going to kill criminals who are extremely violent and kill women, children, or even innocent men just because they feel like it. They're pretty much serial murderers on a rampage and no one's going to stop them because they're afraid of them. So that character's going to go out and do it. Boom. Well, that's not something I do personally. But I have to be able to understand the moral implications of these different actions and different behaviors and the different motivations for these characters. Why am I giving more context and nuance than you?
So it follows that the characters will inevitably have less and less moral realism, resulting in less and less compelling or interesting heroes.
Facts.
Alright, so let's move past the fact that she subtly calls most writers immoral and get to the thing.
You aren't trying. You could not possibly be trying at this point. Or that, or you are so far up your own ego, you cannot possibly comprehend that other writers that exist in the modern persona, are not possibly good at writing. Because they only write what they know, and they only know their subjective, egotistical, narcissistic tendencies. And therefore, they cannot do good writing because they cannot do differently than what they believe. Or they create monsters from things that aren't actually monstrosities. well, this person didn't tip at their local restaurant. They're clearly a villain. That's not how that works. That's not what makes you a villain. Oh my gosh. It used to be murdering an entire town without a second thought just because you felt like doing so. That's a villain. No, now it's, well, you forgot to tip your waiter. And you didn't not punt that kitten when you had the choice to walk away. Like, it's the dumbest things. It's not even good things. It's dumb things. And here we are.
That I find more important. The idea that these days,
You find more important. Well, boy, I'm glad you have been extremely straightforward about your beliefs on things, because that's relevant to anything.
most writers don't understand morality. Now, I'm guessing some people watching are going, yeah,
Most people in general don't understand morality, let alone writers. What do you want about?
of course, the world is so bad right now. Clearly, most people don't understand morality. And if you believe that, sure.
I've talked to human beings. They don't know what the frick morality is. Like, this is non-negotiable. You can find 20 different people, and they all have their own variation and version of what morality is. And guess what? You might find 0 that are accurate. Because the average person in the West is retarded if you don't know this. The average person in the world's retarded for general speaking purposes. But specifically the West has this tendency to push out the dumbest people on the planet, and I don't understand why.
Well, I don't
Well, I do. Society's retarded.
agree. I understand where you're coming from. What I have a
Do you?
problem with is the these days bit. This
These days is in recent time period, not in the olden ages of the recent time period, aka the modern era. We're not talking the 1800s and the early 1900s, or the 1900s in general. We're talking the middle of the second half of wherever we are. So basically 2015 on has kind of gone downhill if you are not aware. And if you're not aware, you haven't been paying attention.
implies that it wasn't a huge problem in the past, which for anybody with even a basic knowledge of history is obviously not true. A lot of the literature Lane's channel cites comes from the early 20th century, a time of genocides, world wars, and colonialism.
Okay, are those moral goods or moral bads? I bet you don't have the right answer because you're only going to have your subjective answer.
Many writers of the time, like H.G. Wells, were literal eugenicists. Many of the
We're not talking about what... Oh my god. We are not talking about the writer's morality in the perspective of their personal preference on things in the good or the bad means. We are talking about their ability to comprehend and understand and recognize morality in their writings to create better moral characters. Just because a person's immoral in an actual writing, as a writer themselves, as a human being, they're immoral, doesn't mean they can't make up or create something. Because a lot of people who are immoral know they're immoral. They just don't care they're immoral. They know what the right thing to do is. They just refuse to do it. And if you refuse to do the right thing, it doesn't make you moral. But you can still write it. You just don't personally believe it. Like, you can write a character that is a slaver. Guess what? You don't have to believe in slavery being a good thing to write a slaver character. It's not required. You could be an author and be a slaver and write the character of a slaver in a bad light. It's possible. This is literally just character attacks because reasons. You don't morally agree with these authors and their viewpoints, and many people probably don't. Congratulations. You don't have to like the people or their viewpoints. You don't even have to know anything about them. You just have to know, did they write good characters or did they not write good characters? Did they write good stories or did they not write good stories? If you don't appreciate the author and their personal beliefs and viewpoints, you don't have to consume their content. It's like, oh no, H.P. Lovecraft's cat was literally just the N-word. The name of the cat, that is. Okay. I don't consume H.P. Lovecraft stuff. What do I freaking care?
writers who weren't were still wildly racist. And the most popular
This is a virtue signal. This has absolutely nothing to do with this.
movie of the time was so bigoted that it literally revived the Ku Klux Klan. The idea that the famous writers of the past were any more moral than the writers of today
Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna lie. As bad as people can be back in the past, I think today's even worse because they're more bigoted, they're more racist, and they're more, well, everything.
Today is laughable. What Lane is doing here is some classic "the kids these days" rhetoric. This common line claims that modern society is degenerating, falling apart, and that things used to.
It's not a matter of whether things used to be better or not, it's a matter of it's worse. Like, imagine somebody going out and say, yeah, you know, them Germans that followed the funny mustache man, they were pretty bad, but today it's worse. You'd be like, oh, that's ridiculous. We don't censor people. We don't try to get them fired from the job. We don't try to beat them up in the streets. What are you talking about? We don't do any of that stuff in mass in a larger ground. Oh, wait a minute. Nuts.
Be a lot better than they were. It's a popular talking point among older folks and the right because it fills people with blind nostalgia for a time before. The problem is that when somebody does this
That's a pretty straw man, but okay.
Sort of thing, especially with art, all we get is a bunch of selection bias. You get to see all of the boring, terrible writing of today because it's
I'm pretty sure it's universally acclaimed and understood that no, we had masters of art and then we have current day artists. There's not even a competition because if you sat down and said, hey, we're going to do a competition and put the Cartoon Network kids programming artists, which are pretty much all the same people, and we're going to put them up against the grandiose artists of the late 90s and the early 2000s. There is not a comparison on this planet that can argue in favor of the modern artist. No shot. You have zero reason or backing for that viewpoint to make it even remotely believable. It just isn't true. You're not going to be able to do it. Congratulations, you destroyed your own argument.
mainstream and in your face. It can feel all-encompassing and suffocating. But when you go back to books written a century ago, it's a breath of fresh air, since they're all really good. But the only reason for that is that all of the terrible stuff written back then isn't relevant anymore.
You say terrible? Why is it terrible? You're not telling me why it's terrible.
Nobody bothers to keep it in print. Society still cares about terrible new Marvel movies. We almost never care about terrible novels.
Okay, well, hold on. They don't keep it in print. Some of those are outside of the freaking print. Oh my gosh. If they're outside of the window for someone to own the rights to them, why would they do that? If they don't have, or even if they have the rights, but no one's purchasing them, why would they keep printing them? That's loss of finances. Publishers don't publish books out of the kindness of their hearts. They sell whatever the market is asking for. So if the market is degenerate, it sells more degenerate books. Pretty obvious.
From 100 years ago.
Why
So
am I
when
yelling?
Lane claims that modern writing is broadly and noticeably worse than stuff from the Gilded Age, of course it is.
Well, okay. Why did she say that? Is it because my nostalgia? Did she say it because one has an actual level of gravitas in its writing style, comprehensibility, the ability to convince the reader of a particular viewpoint or a thought process? Was it written to be sarcastic or politically insensitive? What exactly are you complaining about of the old stuff that you think is a crime against humanity being compared to the new stuff? Where's your nuance?
Bad writing from the Gilded Age doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, Lane spends the next 14 minutes really driving the point home that if you want to write moral characters, you have to understand morality. Now, putting
Shocking idea! If you want to make content for YouTube, you have to know how to make content. Yeah. If you're gonna learn how to tie your shoes, you better learn how to tie your shoes or learn from somebody who knows how to tie their shoes. Yeah? Learn about the thing you're trying to write about, therefore you can write better about it. Yeah. I feel like this is like every writing 101 book is if you're going to write about a topic, understand the topic so you can write better. Oh, okay.
aside the fact that the definition of hero she chose doesn't even imply anything about morality, making
But if it's a hero by the Greek term, meaning they don't have to be moral or immoral, they just have to be a person who overcomes a particular feat of greatness. The baddest dude on the planet goes and slays a violent criminal monstrosity thing, amalgamation, whatever it might be. By Greek standards, that's a hero. By modern day, that's not a hero. Why would she use the modern one? It's more accurate to use the older one. I don't know. Why do I do this to myself?
this whole section pointless by her logic, she also, in all 14 minutes of it, never bothers to define what morality is.
Because, for one, you already think you know what her morality is because you just literally described her as a conservative media critic, which means you're assigning all of quote-unquote conservative morality to her. But she's not there to tell you what morality is. She's to tell you how it is or isn't following what morality is understood as. Because if you go to the dictionary of morality, it's only going to tell you the definition of what is right or what is wrong, or in between, which is amoral, right? So if she tells you what is or isn't right from your subjective opinion, it may be incorrect. So she's not there to tell you what morality is. She's telling you when you recognize morality, you need to have it be consistent in your story and work with it. Because if someone, let's say a new writer in the middle of nowhere, just pops out of freaking thin air and says, I'm going to make my character moral and they're going to go around, they're going to stop the immoral people. And then her character, or her, that person's character goes out and does a whole bunch of immoral acts by the general view of society, like it's burning buildings that have people in them to the ground, causing mass murders, possibly even goes on a genocidal rampage, just destroying entire ethnic groups and clans and kingdoms and whatever, and just absolutely does all these immoral things and says, see, I told you they were moral. People are going to question your morality. Because that's not how morality works. Because you yourself think those are okay. Therefore, she's not telling you what to think for your morality, which you should be happy about, but apparently that's a negative point against her. And she's explaining it's going to have to be some form of consistency. When you say something is a moral or a good act, it has to be a moral or a good act. I'm shocked, I tell you, shocked.
Modern writers and a modern audience really didn't understand that. You think that'd be a useful thing to know, right? What moral system does she think is correct?
It doesn't matter what she thinks is correct. It's a matter of what the person, the author, is writing. You could create an entire brand new morality system in a story where it is okay to commit genocide. It is okay to steal from people. It is okay to do this. Because in that universe, that's the morality. You don't have to use real life morality. But for a morality system, it has to be a system. It has to make sense. If it's okay to commit genocide, then not committing genocide is not okay. And therefore you have a moral system that the characters have to operate inside. And if they don't operate with inside of those things, guess what? It's going to be immoral. Because in that universe, that's the rules. Is this a complicated thing for people to understand? I struggle with the concept that people can't understand what morality needs to be for a story. She's not telling you what you need to believe, and then if you don't believe it, you're a bad person. She's saying these stories lack morality because there is no morality. It's just people doing stuff, but it's like all amoral. None of it's actually good or bad. Like you have your generic bad faction, your generic good faction, and then they fight. There's There's no morality. It's just, we think we're right. We think you're wrong. We think we're right. We think you're wrong. The end of the book.
Never bothers to explain any of that stuff, waffling
You haven't let her say a single word. I don't want to hear it.
on about how people need to be good and moral without ever defining goodness. Is virtue the result of providing things for others, like in utilitarianism? Does she hold to the
The answer is no.
Confucian or Platonist view that good comes from knowledge? Does it come from following the words of Jesus or Muhammad? Does she
Well, I mean, Jesus and Muhammad have very different ideas of morality, so I don't think that's going to be a good comparison for you. But okay. Why does it matter what her personal morality is? Why does it matter what she thinks you should write morality about? Because as far as I'm aware, that's not what she's arguing. She's not arguing your stuff sucks because it's not my morality. She's saying your system sucks because your system has no morality. None. That's the point.
subscribe to virtue ethics? I don't know. She never gives me anything to work with.
You haven't given me anything to work with. Quite literally.
What
We're 11 minutes in and I have nothing to work with except that you don't know anything.
is good? What is the fundamental core thing that the vast majority of modern writers are missing? Hell if I know, because she never bothers to say. Instead, our time is being wasted on condescending statements like, most writers don't realize that morality needs to be considered when constructing heroes, or
Yes, it needs to be considered. Oh my god.
any character. Are you hearing yourself? Of course they know that.
Do they? Is it moral or immoral for a character to have sex out of wedlock? Well, it depends on which morality you have. She's not telling you which morality to have. She's saying, can you be consistent? Well, your character's sleeping around with 73 billion people. Well, that doesn't sound moral in any shape or form. It sounds more like a prostitute. And I don't think prostitution is considered moral in any particular area except from the prostitute's perspective. Unless you're thinking of subjectivity or moral relativism, and if you're running in that department, you're not going to get any good answers because everything contradicts everything else.
That's why they call some characters heroes and some villains.
No, we use entirely different freaking terms to describe them now than they did back in the day.
That's why the concept of anti-heroes exists.
Well, no. Anti-heroes aren't villains, per se. They're complex characters, but okay.
And in these 14 minutes, she'll pepper in statements like this. Even if writers and teachers do understand that such a thing is essential to the study of heroes and heroic characters, most are hesitant to venture into moral territory.
Why could this possibly be? Maybe because their viewers will disagree with it potentially, and it will cause a giant backlash and a huge wave of upset people from freaking puritanical morons and freaking hyper virtue signaling buffoons. Maybe those are the options.
What if someone disagrees with you?
Yes.
What if you get canceled on the internet?
Yes.
There is definitely an aspect of fear at play.
Most definitely.
A lot of writers are afraid.
Yes.
So instead, when they're trying to build
And they're usually the ones that are not virtue signaling.
characters, especially heroes and anti-heroes, writers will instead focus mainly on those formulaic sets of requirements that you find all over the internet.
Yes.
This is another example of Lane not knowing her history. This is not a new thing at all. Writers have been persecuted for their fiction ever since fiction has been a thing. There were people who got massive and sometimes deadly blowback for disobeying the church or the king. The first Chinese emperor killed
I bet talking about leftism and homosexuality and then being murdered by it, everyone agreed with the person who murdered him because that would be moral, right?
hundreds of Confucian scholars. The Soviet Union banned hundreds of books, continuing the legacy of the
Communists doing bad things! Oh no! Who could have seen this coming?
Tsars, who banished Pushkin and sent Dostoevsky to a labor camp. For 400 years, the Catholic Church quite literally curated a massive list of books which they made illegal to print across huge swaths of Europe. And
I bet you don't have context for that either.
God forbid if you tried to write anything gay, your ass would be in jail in about 20 minutes after.
Almost like It was not a popular viewpoint to hold or to be. Ah. So wait, it's not always been societally acceptable? And people had arguments for this? Well, I was told that everyone's allowed to be whatever they want to be because reasons.
After it got published. People have always had to worry about how the content of their writing will come across to the greater public. It's a problem, but not a new one, and it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be, at least in the West. Censorship isn't a product of modern sensitivity as she often claims throughout her videos, but the simple fact that sometimes people in power and the greater public don't like your book and will give you shit for it. I could go over every example in these 14 minutes of nonsense claims like this one, but if I did, we would be here for an hour.
I've already been here probably for an hour. Let me see. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, an hour and 6 minutes.
Just
We're 13 minutes.
know that nothing Lane says in this video is really based in history at all.
I can't trust anything you say because so far you've, one, not let her speak for herself, two, have shown me you don't know anything about any of the topics you've communicated about, and three, haven't really said anything substantial the entire time except she's wrong, she's wrong, she's wrong, and you should believe me because she's wrong.
She also takes this time to talk about anti-heroes, which, okay, let's get into it. First, she tries to find a definition of an anti-hero, and once again goes back to a random, obscure dictionary from 1996, claiming it was the only non-internet definition she could find. Well, clearly she didn't look very hard, because
Merriam-Webster is not a good dictionary. This has been known for a while. They will update the terms and change the definitions to match that of the current time period rather than having new words invented. This has been established. Why would you ever trust Merriam-Webster?
after less than 5 minutes of searching, I was able to find this definition from the 2004 Merriam-Webster Dictionary.
I think we just went over this.
On page 30, a protagonist who is notably lacking in heroic qualities as courage. Pretty straightforward. It's a main character who isn't very heroic, like, for example, they might be a coward. Here's another example from their website, which contains the same information as their dictionaries. A protagonist or notable figure who is conspicuously lacking in heroic qualities. But no, Lane forgoes the most popular and trusted dictionary in America.
I mean, I'd say that's a misplaced trust, but okay.
In favor of a definition from a 90s writer's encyclopedia, all for a very...
Wait, it's a writer's encyclopedia, and they're using it for writing? It sounds like it's almost more appropriate than just a random throw out there, everybody can change whatever they want in it freaking dictionary.
Very specific reason. It lets her push an agenda.
Oh, she has an agenda when she doesn't even force her morality on you. Oh my gosh!
Specifically, it uses the word sensitive. Lane spends the next several minutes going over how everybody is so sensitive nowadays and nobody knows anything about morality anymore, saying things like, in today's world, the only metric morality seems to be able to be measured is one of feelings.
Explain how she's wrong. Like, legitimately. Explain how she's wrong. Because she's not.
Putting aside the fact that, again, Lane never defines what she thinks is moral, she also
because that's not her job. Her job is not to say what is or isn't moral. Her job is to tell you that you're not building any moral foundation in your story. Or you're using things that are blatantly, obviously immoral, and you shouldn't have to do it. It's like, oh yeah, well, I went out and murdered 16 people. Well, that's not good. Like, I don't have to tell you that's not good, right? Like, that's pretty obvious, right?
He picked a definition from a relatively unknown book from 30 years ago, which is now out of print, also...
It's literally says a completely revised and updated edition of the Classic Encyclopedia of World Literature. But no, a random personal preference pick in the dictionary department is perfectly fine, but not one designed literally for literature. I can't believe this.
So she could say that people nowadays don't actually think about if anything is good or not, and just do whatever makes them hedonistically feel good. Statements like these are meant to make the audience feel smart, even though they make absolutely no sense if you think about them for more than 10 seconds. If you hear something like this and then go, well, that doesn't apply to me, then congratulations! According to Lane, you are in the top percentile of the wise, able to parse out what's right and wrong, even when nobody else can.
Okay, first off, you haven't given any morality structure either, outside of anything you might have said that's minor, that was like a subjective, moral relativistic viewpoint of anything. I don't think you've mentioned anything objectivity-wise in any form of moral personification of what you believe it is, or good, not good, or whatever. You're saying she's bad, but you haven't explained how she's bad. Unless your argument is she's bad because she doesn't declare a moral compass that you should follow, and that's not her job. She's not doing that. Like, I just don't get it.
It makes you feel smart for being in an exclusive and prestigious category, even when in reality, if you went outside and talked to people, you would discover that probably 80 or 90% of people would be right there in that category with you. This is how a lot of conservative myths, like the idea
And now you're just blaming on conservatism as if that has anything to do with being able to write.
that society is degrading and only you can see it, gets spread.
So you have a moral problem with people who disagree with you morally, like Alex Jones talking about abortion, doctors performing abortions are agents of Satan, and you call him a loser, which just tells us your viewpoint on that topic. It doesn't tell us if he's right or wrong. It just tells us that you disagree with him. Congratulations, nothing has been accomplished.
It's meant to play on the egos of people who won't think too hard about it. Because Lane cites a source, you're meant to
I'm not convinced. You have not sold me on the concept that you have thought hard and long on this.
assume that she's right, even though her source is a
Her source is a world literature. Oh my gosh. You just don't understand. Like, you're literally seeing it. You can read it. You put the picture in this video, and you do not understand the difference between a normal dictionary and a world literature dictionary. Are you literally kidding me? This is bad, guys.
terrible one, and because the argument it's supporting makes you feel good, you don't question it
You feel good because you disagree with Alex Jones. Congratulations, you are allegedly no different than her.
further. That's
Except for being apparently the different, because she's a dreaded conservative and you're obviously liberal.
what the point of sections like this is rhetorically. You're not like the other writers who only operate on feelings. You're smart. You're called.
When you don't operate off of feelings, you don't have virtue signaling. You have well-developed characters who actually had to face difficult times, difficult experiences, or experience mass amounts of loss in order to understand what the value of things was to them before they could realize that it was gone. There's a lot of ways you can utilize that, and none of them have you pointed out as being a bad reason to write a character that way.
You're better than them. Then, nearly 10 minutes in, she uses
Strawman.
her first example in the entire video. People feeling sympathetic for Jeffrey Dahmer after the Netflix show came out about him. And yeah, I ain't gonna defend this. Apparently it wasn't harsh enough on the guy, and that led to a decent number of people siding with him despite him being a monster. But I'd like to point out that the only thing she uses to prove her point about how people nowadays just do things based on vibes and don't actually care about morality is 4 posts on TikTok made by barely literate teenage girls, all with the likes chopped off so you can't see if anybody else agreed with them. The vast majority of people, even the ones who have watched the show, don't think Dahmer was a good person. That's not even mentioning serial killers like Ted Bundy, who got love letters, Ian Brady, who had a bunch of random women mourning him at his funeral, and for that matter, Jeffrey Dahmer, who was inundated with fan mail after his trial went public. And Brady was active during the 60s, so clearly this is not a modern problem. It's just that
A continuous modern problem. And again, the problem isn't with the time period, it's what's being written now versus what is being... Oh my gosh. My brain's gonna explode, guys. it's gonna legitimately explode.
In the modern day, when serial killers can get a Netflix show made about them and teenagers can post about it on social media, that sort of thing is a lot more visible. Anyway, that's basically what things are like up until the 18-minute mark. Lane complaining about things in the modern day without acknowledging that they've always been a problem, and saying that nobody has objective morality anymore without ever defining what objective morality is. Which is pretty
not her job! I don't know how many times I have to say this. It's not her job!
weird for someone who otherwise seems to be so obsessed with definitions. She also says this.
She's so obsessed with definitions, and you have so many problems with her, which means you have problems with definitions. Is that what you're telling me?
13.5 minutes into her video. But, I mean, think about it. If the only thing the writer has used to build the morality of the written world and the characters is how it makes them feel, the chances that such morality will resonate with another person are 10,000 to 1. And to that,
Lane arguing that people nowadays only use emotion and not morals to build their stories. Yeah. Because you're not building it off of morality, you're building it off of your personal preferences and emotions. This is pretty self-evident. I don't know how you could get away from that. If your writing style is that of emotion basis, then of course you're going to come to the wrong conclusion when it comes to morality, because morality does not operate off of your emotions or feelings. It is your feelings and emotions that should replicate or reflect that of morality. That's not a difficult concept. It's difficult for people to enact because they dislike it, because morality will tell them something that they don't like most of the time. Morality isn't one of those things that always agrees with you and you're always right. There's lots of things that even moral people are like, man, I wish I could do this thing that's not good, it is immoral, but I know I shouldn't, and so I won't. They still desire sometimes to do things or behave a specific way that is immoral, but they don't do it because they realize they shouldn't, because morality. They're trying to reflect morality, not have morality reflect them.
I say, then why are there so many poorly written dystopias? In a poorly written dystopia, bad things happen, but they aren't emotionally powerful.
Because they're written for teenagers, and teenagers don't exactly think very clearly.
People are oppressed. Dissidents are executed. The bad guys are in charge, and yet none of those things make you feel bad. This is the writer understanding morality and why things are wrong in the abstract, but not doing a good job of making it emotionally resonant. And there are poorly written dystopias everywhere. Divergent, Bright, Matched, you get the idea. They all invented societies where things are obviously bad, and
there's nothing wrong with having a society that's obviously bad.
The writer is aware of that, but none of it emotionally invests you. If the problem
Well, that's going to be based upon the person who's reading it. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, but okay.
were actually that people were prioritizing how things made them feel instead of objective morality, then you'd think that these stories would make people feel anything at all.
Are you telling me that they make everybody feel absolutely nothing? So, like, nobody feels anything because you said they don't feel... Oh my gosh. Do you not see the irony in what you say?
I would actually argue that a lot of writing has the opposite problem, where the writers understand why something is bad conceptually and objectively, but don't do a good job of making you feel it. Okay, we're finally done with that section. Wow, wrapping it up, what did we learn from this?
Wrapping it up, you're only halfway in.
Well, the number one takeaway for me is that Lane hates providing examples, probably because basically every...
Okay, for one, if there's one thing she likes doing, it's providing examples, because she provides examples all the time. Are you sure you watched her videos? Are you sure? Or did you just mute her and speed through and wait for the bullet points?
Every claim she makes is baseless and impossible to prove. The only example she provided in this whole...
Wait. Kind of like how people will read these and feel nothing for them? Baseless and impossible to prove? Something like that.
Whole section was the show Dahmer. Despite that, she still said stuff like, this also leads you to the really contradictory characters. Men who have no problem keeping a woman captive, but then when they go to war, they absolutely refuse to do anything as inhumane as taking prisoners, and instead let them all go. And
yes, because that's what it leads to. People will make contradictory characters. And when she's referencing keeping a woman captive, I would bet money it has to do with more of a 50 Shades of Grey kind of thing. and then that character locks up the girl because of romantic interest, and she's okay with it for Stockholm Syndrome purposes. And then he goes off to war and is like, well, I couldn't do anything like this. This is immoral. What are you talking about? As some sort of like virtue signal, like, flower me with your rays of adoration, for I will go home to my captive and ravish her. And then that's okay because the girl's being ravished and the audience is female, and that's what they desire, is to be ravished. But they don't want to be ravished by a guy who, you know, takes prisoners, because that's inhumane.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fucked up. It'd be great if she could provide a single example of anybody ever writing that. Bonus points if most of the audience liked it. But I'd bet good money that that example doesn't exist.
I mean, it's a pretty general term. Again, she's giving the general term. These do exist. They're not that difficult to find. You could literally go to any form of AI and just ask them, or you could go to the Google search bar, type it in, it'll find it, probably with the use of AI, and boom, you'll have plenty of options that will fulfill contradictory moral systems. It's not that difficult. You've probably even read some yourself. And if you read them yourself, then you know. Or do you just not read? Or do you read only specific things? Or do you refuse to see outside of the box? I don't know what your situation is, but
because otherwise she would have used it. The other big takeaways about
and if she used a single one, you're gonna say that's antidote or I hate words sometimes. Incidental. It's not everything. It's only your specific little hoodle-doodle.
budgeting time. This section is long, 14 full minutes, and she barely says anything in it. I know I've spent a while breaking it down myself.
Well, I for one do not believe you in the slightest, but what else is new?
But I used that time to go into complicated historical topics and rhetorical strategies, while she spent it on pretty much just repeating the same 4 or 5 sentences over and over.
It's almost like there's a topic and she's trying to relate everything she says back to that same topic because that's the topic.
Again. On a completely unrelated note, I recently released a 5-hour video on Undertale. Yes, 5 hours. Help! In all seriousness, this is one of my proudest works ever. Please go check it out if you're a fan of the game. I dove insanely in depth into each area, plotline, and character, the relationships they have with each other, and basically everything else I could think of. Sure, it's an apocalyptic length, but I really tried to budget that time wisely and
Okay, you got nothing on Mahler. I'm just going to say that right now.
not repeat myself. Undertale is just so complicated that it deserves a 5-hour analysis video. If you want a stupidly long review about why a beloved piece of media is a masterpiece, this is the video for you.
If you want a 17.5-hour video on why a piece of media is not a beloved series, go check out Mahler's critique of Star Wars. I already forgot what it was called. What was that Star Wars one? It escapes me. It's so insignificant. I forgot the name. Outlaws. Star Wars Outlaws. 17.5 hours of that not being good with lots of evidence. So that's something that would probably be more entertaining than this. Not going to lie.
Also, subscribe, please. Okay, 18 minutes in and we get her first example of a story she thinks has a good protagonist. A movie from the year 2000 called The Patriot. Given the state of modern media, if we want to find a genuinely heroic character written well who also has significant flaws, we're going to have to go pretty far back. That's right, she's a
Oh, pretty far back in history. Oh, wait, she went back to what, the 90s? Pretty far back. Or maybe the early 2000s. The early 2000s or late 90s. Like, do you not understand that her usage of time is very different than what your concept of time is? And I say that in the very much obvious take.
apparently not found a single piece of media with a good hero made after the turn of the 21st century. Just shit all over the heroes of the recent masterpieces, why don't ya? It's a little hard to get across how unbearably condescending this video is. Not to mention, she goes
Maybe she hasn't watched every single thing you've watched. There's an idea.
on to contradict herself later in the video when she talks about Attack on Titan, an anime that was made after the year 2000.
Which personally I think is way overrated.
Whatever, it's not important. Also, she completely contradicts all the stuff she said earlier about her definition of heroes, since now she's implying that they have to be heroic. Remember,
Heroes have to be heroic. Wait a minute. Why would you use a term called hero if they weren't heroic? So wouldn't heroes by definition need to be heroic to even be heroes? Weird how that works.
The definition of hero was literally just male main character, which makes absolutely no sense if you make it into an adjective. Like, imagine if instead of calling Superman
I feel like you just like left out half of not more of the definition to use, but okay.
heroic, we called him very male main character. It's complete nonsense because her definition is contradictory and terrible. And if she was referring to other definitions there, well, then we're right back to the problem of those definitions just being the same as the ones she threw out and called garbage 30 seconds earlier. Anyway, in case you weren't aware, The Patriot is an American propaganda film that makes up fake
American propaganda, guys, because none of it happened.
atrocities that the British never committed, portrays a guy who is partially based on a rapist and a serial killer as a family man and a war hero, and in fact ignored slavery.
Wait. Him killing the enemy is a war crime? What? Explain to me how that's a war crime in a war. You kill the opposite side. That's how war operates. You don't kill civilians, but you do kill combatants. He's a combatant. He kills enemy combatants. That's not a war crime. That's just war. Something tells me history buffs is full of crap, but yeah.
Slavery so it could portray the United States as valiant liberators. So yeah, this is, in her opinion, the only well-written
Oh, it's the guy from Harry Potter.
hero since the year 2000. Lane goes on to explain why she thinks he's a good hero. He's a good man who tries to do good things, but he's realistically flawed. He has a horrible temper and was insanely and excessively violent during the past wars he participated in. Then he gradually learns to control his temper. Okay, nothing wrong here within the context of the story. I can see why that would be a compelling arc. There's only one problem. This is the most cookie-cutter Hollywood arc imaginable. It's literally just...
It's Hollywood. Do they do anything else?
Character is mostly good but has a personal problem. Character gets over personal problem. Character is better now.
And they don't even have that in modern writing. They don't even have that.
This is the style of arc used in, I'm not exaggerating here, just about every damn blockbuster of the past 25 years. Bob Parr
Minus the last 10, 15 years. Yeah, sure, go for it.
wants to be a hero but feels like his family life is dragging him down. Then he learns that he can be both, starts being honest with his family, and boom, he's a heroic family man. Anna and Elsa are kind people but have problems. They learn to get over those problems and come together. Now they're heroic leaders. Aang is a naive, scared kid who can't fight the Fire Lord. Aang learns to be more mature and accepts his duty. Aang is a hero who saves the world. And those are just examples from animation. All of
Wow, congratulations, you've discovered tropes.
these characters always want to do the right thing, but they have to realize that one of their beliefs or character traits is preventing them from being a great hero. Then they fix that problem and they become one. That's exactly how Lane describes Benjamin Martin's arc in The Patriot, and yet she refuses to acknowledge that any arcs like it have happened since. We can argue about how these stories were executed. Obviously, some of them were better than
I will agree. Avatar: The Last Bender is better than Frozen by a lot.
others, but the idea that The Patriot is in any way revolutionary is completely ridiculous. Okay, besides it being
Does it need to be revolutionary? And I get the pun. Does it need to be something massively different to be good? No. That is not Hilary Lane's argument in any shape or form. If that's what you pulled away from it, you weren't paying attention.
set in the Revolutionary War. Okay, you know what? Forget I said anything. Point is, this arc isn't unique, and Lane pretending it is in
It doesn't need to be unique. It's a trope. They're tropes because every story has a trope. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean the trope is bad. It means it has a trope. That's it. Literally it. Done. Kaput. Why are you talking about this?
any way is nonsense. Then she does the same thing again with the movie Rambo, a film which I admittedly have not watched. But just judging by her description of it, focusing on a guy who lives by a heroic moral code which can push him to do bad things, that also applies to both Batman and Superman from the modern
Batman is a villain. Prove me wrong.
movies. Two characters who absolutely refuse to kill people even when it might hypothetically save more people down the road. Those are their moral codes: not killing, pushing them to do something awful, not saving people from criminals who have already committed mass acts of terror before and show no signs of stopping. This all
calling Superman a good film is pretty wild, but okay.
Also applies to Brad Armstrong from Lisa the Painful, but I'll get to that when I finally make my video about Lisa. So yeah, either Lane is hopelessly ignorant of basically any media past the turn of the century, or she has the media literacy of a cat, or she's lying and doing all this to push a weirdo conservative agenda about the degeneracy of modern society.
You don't have to be a conservative to recognize degeneracy. You just have to not be a moron.
Whatever it is, I don't like it. Okay, now I'm really going to
You don't like it because you're a degenerate? Is that your argument? Because that's a pretty bad argument.
skip forward a bunch, because the next 9 minutes is basically a whole bunch more of the same. Strawmanning, deliberate.
Okay, I'm going to do something I have not done in a hot minute. We're going to go playback speed, and we're going to increase the playback speed. Just because at this point, you're talking at a very slow pace and not actually getting to anything. Like, literally, you're complaining about conservatism, conservatives, political ideologicals that you disagree with, blah, 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 blah. But you haven't really said anything of substantial value.
Ignoring examples that don't fit her narrative, being needlessly condescending. By this point, you get it. I'm going to move ahead to 32 minutes, where she finally gets back to point number 3 from earlier by saying, however, on top of emotions, you also have the unfortunate reality that a lot of writers like to inject current year social issues into their heroes.
Yes, that's a problem when it's not current year in this story.
A little more than a megaphone for what really amount to little more twice in one sentence. Wow, Hilary Lane is a great writer. Anyway.
She's not writing, she's stating things. Wow.
What really amount to little more than a rundown of the highlights of their Twitter feed. Whew,
you said conservative more than once in this video. You must be a terrible writer.
Nonsense. Okay, for one, it'd be nice if she cited any example at all to back up this massive claim, but by now, okay, come on, do I even have to say it anymore?
But if she cites one and you're not familiar with it, nothing is accomplished. I mean, you just put in freaking 3 films and said, look at these 3 films. They all have the same trope. That's not unique. It doesn't need to be unique. It's a trope. Tropes are not unique when they have the same trope as everybody else, or at least something else has the same trope. Good luck finding a story that doesn't have any tropes that anybody else has. Somebody else has the same trope in something. This is a ridiculous position to take, so why are you taking it?
More, nothing, no example. And I know there's going to be someone down in the comments saying how all this is such a huge problem, and woke Hollywood is infected with it. But I gotta say, in the 11 years since...
I'm shocked that you dislike Neurotic, I tell you. Shocked. He's probably a conservative, too.
Gamergate, I genuinely don't know if I've seen a single character who's just a mouthpiece for the writer's political beliefs. Velma? Maybe, but she still has a personality outside of that, even if it is insufferable. But that's
at least you admit she's insufferable. I'll give you points for that.
Point, because the real question is, why is including current year social issues in your writing a bad thing? That's how writing has worked, again, for literal...
You know what, I'm gonna be kind.
Centuries, and there's nothing inherently wrong with it. Fiction is a great way of criticizing leaders, laws, and social trends, and decrying...
Except degeneracy. You're not allowed to do that. No, don't do that. Oh, people aren't writing heroes correctly? Can't do that. Are you criticizing people's writing capabilities? Can't do that.
Doing that as injecting politics into your story is nonsense. It's just another dog whistle for post-Gamergate conservatism. The idea that modern media is full of unnecessary politics just because characters bring up racism or sexism occasionally, or something. If you're familiar with the kind of arguments conservative critics make, you'll know that this is what she's implying, and also that implying this sort of thing is ridiculous. And then she does something very sneaky. See, she brings up an example of something kind of related. The content of a story being changed or censored by corporations who didn't want to upset the audience. There's only one problem. This example is the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon, a show from 40 years ago. That's not exactly modern, and if she wanted an example of parents groups controlling what...
No, she's just showing you that corporations haven't changed very much since.
But in a show, there were a billion more recent examples that she could have used. No, she's doing this because she gets to use a quote from the guy who's in the right, talking about how corporations make creatives change their work based on majority rule. At the time, the dominant pro-social...
That's a normal thing, actually. That's pretty standard and pretty stereotypical.
Moral was as follows. The majority is always right, the complainer is always wrong. The reason Lane uses this quote specifically is because it's a defense against everybody who would criticize her video. After all, if they criticize her, somebody who clearly does nothing but complain, then they're just like those corporations...
She does nothing but complain, so watch my video about me doing nothing but complaining about her complaining. Really helping your scenario there, Sparkles.
And those oversensitive parents groups who censor Dungeons & Dragons. Well, guess what? I'm the complainer now. I'm the one standing up against the majority. Power's in my corner. And if you criticize me, I'll be sure to use that quote back on you. Okay, that bit wasn't really that relevant or serious. I just thought it was funny. And can I just say while I'm at it, that book she recommended, the one she wrote, I'm basically certain the cover was made with AI. It looked like it to me.
And if it's not, congratulations, whoopity-doo. And if it is, congratulations, whoopity-doo. It's either a nice cover or it's not. And if your argument, and this is stupid, I'm not going to get into this AI argument. If your argument is, I don't like AI because my personal feelings, then you're a freaking moron. That's the case. If it's good quality, it's not AI slop then. If it's made mostly by a person with help from AI, it's not AI slop if it's not AI slop, if it's quality. It can only be AI slop if it's made with literally nothing helping it, and it's just nobody putting any effort into it. That's how you get AI slop. But when you put effort into it, it by definition is no longer AI slap. Glad I could clear that up for everybody.
And after I ran it through a checker, it said it was quite confident the cover was too. Personally, I don't think somebody who uses
Oh yeah, the same checkers that they said, oh, we found this multiple times. They kept saying something was AI, but was actually written by an actual person. Oh wait, are you telling me that they're fallible and they can make mistakes? Maybe we shouldn't rely entirely on them.
AI as the cover of what is supposedly a passion project of theirs should be talking about the degeneration of modern writing. After all, they're just contributing to the degeneration of a different art form. Anyway.
It's not a degeneration of a different art form. That's not how that works. Did you bother asking her if there's actual freaking art? Like, literally, if you get the book and you flip it open to say art by, bum. There's your artist. Congratulations.
Lane then goes right back to talking about the degeneracy of modern society and how nobody has morals anymore. One of her big points is about how everybody nowadays just thinks that whatever the law says is correct. If the government makes it a law.
Yes, because that's how that works. People think that morality is based upon whatever the law says. However, the law is supposed to be based upon morality. That's how that's supposed to work if you want to have true justice. You can't have true justice if it's subjective, and therefore, oh my gosh, philosophy is beyond you people.
Well then, everyone has to follow it or else they're a bad person. In her words, there's this weird idea nowadays that the law is morality, that we can only determine whether or not something is morally right by finding out whether or not it's illegal. But once again, this has been a thing for
not everything that's illegal is immoral. That's why the entire argument falls apart.
Literal centuries. For example, it's the motivation for the villain of one of the most famous historical epics in human history. That's right, we're talking about Javert, baby. Les Miserables focuses on Jean Valjean, a strapping young man who goes to a labor camp for stealing a loaf of bread and leaves it 19 years later. Not so strapping anymore. He tries to make a new life for himself and really turns over a new leaf, becoming one of the richest men in town and the mayor. Only problem is he keeps running into this square frickin' buzzkill named Javert, a police inspector with a pole up his butt so long he's practically a scarecrow. He follows the rules religiously, never allowing for exceptions or any degree of mercy at all, even if arresting somebody would be deeply evil. And he's a total menace, a wrecking ball that just makes everything worse for everybody. This book was written in 1862. My point here is that men like Javert have always existed, or at the very least have existed for a really long time. Lane is once again trying to pretend that this is some new social trend when it obviously isn't. All of these
yeah, a single character versus all of society. Definitely the same thing.
awful takes and weird black and white morality culminate in two things. Her opinions on the Punisher and
Wait. Weird black and white morality? Black and white morality is literally the definition of morality. Like, it's wrong or it's right. And if it's not a moral issue. It might be a complicated moral issue, like, say, it appears to be right, but it's actually morally wrong, or it appears to be wrong, but it's actually morally right, dependent upon what you're looking at. But okay.
and Captain America Civil War. The Punisher is an anti-hero that came from Spider-Man comics back in the day. His whole thing is hunting down and killing every single violent criminal he comes across. No trial, no due process, no redemptive justice.
He does extensive amount of intellectual intelligence work on it. Make sure he's not killing the wrong person. He's not doing it out of psychopathy or anything like that. He's legitimately just being like, these people are hurting people, and if I don't stop them, the system isn't going to do it. And ironically, he's not wrong. The system doesn't. Also looking at you, Batman. And then there's the problem over and over and over and over and over again. And he's like, well, I can stop that problem from being a cycle over and over and over again. And he does. He actually does something about it, whereas everybody else doesn't.
Here's what Lane says about that. Tons and tons of non-ambiguously heroic characters are now considered anti-heroes merely because they either routinely break the law or they operate outside the law. Okay, first of all, no. Superman operates outside the law. Nobody would ever call him an anti-hero for doing it because he's always doing it for perfectly moral reasons. This isn't really a qualification people use at all. And then she says,
and if he killed people who deserved to die, but the law wouldn't touch or couldn't touch, they would call him an anti-hero. Huh.
so you have a character like Frank Castle, who's an absolute plain and simple black and white hero, and yet he is considered an anti-hero because he actually kills the bad guys. Okay, so
he's actually a very complex character, and you just apparently are not familiar with him, but okay.
first things first, no. Thor sometimes kills bad guys. So does Captain America. Same with Green Lantern. Wonder Woman literally fought in World War I, and yet nobody ever calls them anti-heroes. You know why? Because what they do is unambiguously the right thing. It has nothing to do with if you kill. It's about when and why. The thing that separates guys like Steve Rogers from Frank Castle
is killing a criminal any different than killing a Nazi soldier in a World War II film? One's war, one's not, but they're both technically the wrong guy, right? Like, so can you explain how they're different? Because one could argue that it's worse to kill a person on the other side just because somebody tells you to go do it, as opposed to killing somebody across the street because they actually have a history of actually killing tons and tons of people, where that one person you just yeeted out of a plane or yeeted it out into the middle of the world to splat their brains everywhere, never actually shot and killed anybody, but they were just put there because their government told them to be. Which one's actually wrong to do? It's a complex question. It's not a simple one, but one could argue that the criminal is more dangerous because they have more deaths at their hands. Congratulations.
is that Cap will only kill people when it's absolutely necessary. Well, Punisher will see a young guy who's worked as some low-level goon for a mob boss and go,
No. He doesn't just kill a low-level goon just because he's a low-level goon. He kills people when they get between him and his high target, and they do not move. If he can go around them, he'll go around them. If they have if it's the mob, like let's say the Nucci's. If you've played the video game, you know. The Nucci's, an entire mob family, absolutely just trying to ruin Frank Castle in every sense of the word. They're completely and entirely at war. It's not a him showing up, killing the target, and then leaving. It's literally everyone in that family is trying to kill him. Actively. So him killing a Nucci, low foot soldier, it's like, well, I'm sorry, you chose to be a low foot soldier against the Punisher. It's your fault. You made the bad decision. But if somebody's out there being like, I'm a drug dealer for this dude and I'm just, smoking some weed, he's not going to look at you twice until you mention how you, molested a child. Then you're done for. There's a difference in what he's targeting because he's caring about the big pieces. He doesn't have time to hunt every single person that the law calls a criminal than he does the things that the law won't touch. It's a very complex character, but people simply do not understand that.
Hey, buddy. He kills violent criminals completely indiscriminately. He doesn't let them have trials or a second chance, and often doesn't even have proof they
often doesn't have proof. You're not familiar with this character. Okay, I get it.
did something bad. In his first appearance in the Spider-Man comics, he literally tried to kill Peter Parker just because Jonas' trashy tabloid said that Spider-Man was a murderer. One big thing.
There's no evidence to the other contrary because all the evidence and intel, nobody has intel on Spider-Man. Nobody but Peter Parker knows who Spider-Man is. Peter Parker knows who Peter Parker is. Peter Parker knows who Spider, none. And I mean literally none of this ever is explained or put forward in a way that Frank Castle would know this. Also, that's how somebody introduces him as a character doesn't mean that's the in-depth quality of that character. Because in other comics and runs and everything of him, he's shown as a person who consistently, not just in one run, consistently pays attention. And maybe one could argue that if he became the Punisher one day and then instantly goes after Peter Parker, after running into Peter Parker and then not actually killing him, but then learning that he's not actually a bad guy, then he's like, maybe I'll do more intellectual thought process and actually gather intelligence through my contacts, and then I'll make better decision making. There's character growth right there if that's what you want to run with, but seriously, what are you doing?
That makes the Punisher an anti-hero is that he's doing something that is universally agreed to be wrong, killing people, for reasons which you could
It's not universally wrong to kill people. It's universally wrong to kill innocent people. There's a big difference.
argue are morally justified. When Cap kills a guy, it's always as a justified last resort to save innocence, not controversial at all. But depending on your system of morality, you could come down on either side of whether or not Punisher is doing the right thing. He's an anti-hero because, like the definition states, he's a protagonist who displays a lack of heroic characteristics, like
what heroic characteristics is he missing?
Giving criminals a fair shot in court, boiling him.
That's not a heroic quality. That's not a heroic quality. That's a modern heroic quality. That's not actually a oh my gosh. Their fair shot in court. Well, that's only if the court is fair. If a judge is corrupt, the cops are corrupt, and everybody's corrupt. If the Punisher goes in, kills the judge and the cops that are all corrupt, and there's evidence of them being corrupt, is he morally correct or not? Was he supposed to give them to the other corrupt judges? Was he supposed to give them to the other corrupt cops so that the cycle can continue and they'll be wiped clean, and then the system will say, well, now we can't touch them because we put them through the system and it just didn't do it right. It didn't work properly. And he's like, no, I'm gonna get rid of the problem. That's how you fix the system from Frank Castle's perspective. That's his character. Congratulations.
Down to this black and white, he kills the bad men, so he is good. He's literally exactly what Lane was arguing against earlier when she was talking about the Patriot. But even then, Frank Castle isn't just killing the bad guys when he has to or out of a sense of moral duty. He's killing criminals indiscriminately because he's on a quest for revenge. Lane says stuff like,
does Frank Castle think that, aside from the people who killed his family, every criminal on the planet is responsible for his wife and kid's death? No, he's not a moron. So of course he's not going to come up with some stupid idea that it's the exact same. Every criminal, the one who stole a candy bar or a piece of bubble gum, that 4-year-old, they're responsible for my family's death. I'm going to go on a revenge quest and wipe them from the face of this earth. No, they're not going to do that because that's not Frank Castle. You don't know Frank Castle. Congratulations.
I don't know about you, but I had a really hard time finding the gray area in the morality of a guy who went out of his way to kill a man who offered to sell him a 12-year-old girl. And I'm not going to touch that subject with a 10-foot pole, because if I do, that's going to be my entire comment section. But I will say, that's a very dishonest framing. Punisher does a whole lot more than just kill that one guy. Most of the guys he kills are a lot less guilty with a lot less proof. She's the kind of person
There are also a lot more people trying to stop him from doing the thing he's supposed to be doing, and they're not good people in general.
who would unironically support Kira.
If they stood out of the way, he wouldn't be killing them. Congratulations. He doesn't just destroy an entire organization. He kills the head of the organization and anyone who stands between him and the end. Cops will do the same thing if there's a gunfight going on. Congratulations.
Would cheer when Light Yagami sent another 1,000 criminals to an early grave.
But no, the cops have to actually, like, they have to give them a second chance. So they have to, like, use, I don't know, some form of, like, tranquilizer darts or, you know, the big old ballistic balls that they hit people, but they won't kill them, but they'll just hurt them intensely. Oh, wait, they don't do that.
Please, for the love of God, nobody ever introduced this woman to Death Note. And then there's Captain America, Civil War. Now, I'll be the first to say
Death Note's not that particularly good, just saying.
that I think Civil War has some major issues. Hell, I literally did that not too long ago. But I never had a problem with the first 40 minutes or so, which is the part Lane does.
Civil War was lame because they didn't show the actual length and width, breadth, whatever, of how big this was. They didn't show this as a contention of two entirely ideologically opposed sides and show the merits or the negatives of each. They didn't do that. They didn't show more than like 10 people. And now we have Dr. freaking Doom with like a bazillion characters. This is the movie that should have a billion characters in it. We just don't get them.
Online. First of all, she thinks that Civil War thinks the Scarlet Witch is immoral because she accidentally blew up a building. That's just straight up wrong. Everybody who saw it happen in the movie knows it was an accident and not really her fault. The problem they had is that they didn't think Scarlet Witch should have had the opportunity to make that accident at all. Basically, they were asking why they, a group of largely untrained vigilantes, should be the ones trying to handle things like bombs and terrorism, and not a group of professionals.
I mean, how many of these guys have military training to deal with these kind of incidents? I freaking Cap, for crying out loud. I mean, Iron Man already has multiple films behind him where he's dealing with terrorist groups. That's experience. Like, right there are two people that are veterans standing right behind Cap. But no, they don't know how to do this type of stuff. It's like, or you could use the one with magic. But again, that just means that there might be a single issue or a particular potential issue in the entire film. It does not mean that the ideological side that opposes them is good or bad. Like, that's not how this works.
Could be held accountable if they screw up. So she's just wrong there. It's way more nuanced than she makes it out to be. Lane says that the entire movie was built on absurd faux moral complexities that are made up entirely of emotion, which is basically like saying they're made of cotton candy.
I mean, that's... Okay. Stark's entire side was emotionally driven. Not factually, emotionally driven. Cap's side was completely non-emotion driven and was completely based upon logic and reason. This is a pretty easy thing to break down if you have any semblance of understanding of what philosophy is, but I assume since there is a team Cap, team non-Cap, the people who are non-Cap probably didn't have very much intellectual thought process or philosophy schooling.
To quote some more, the movie thinks the Avengers upset people, so they were bad. But no, the Avengers killed people. That's why they were bad. Or
No. They accidentally killed people. They did not intentionally kill people. There's a difference. You know who also accidentally kills people? Professionals.
rather, why some people thought they needed to be reined in. Scarlet Witch's mistake isn't morally complex because it made people scared. It's morally complex because her mistake got people killed. And if nothing is done, the Avengers might do it again. This is
like Batman gets people killed every freaking time.
literally the entire point of the first third of the movie. They are not obtuse or vague about it at all. Tony thinks that the Avengers need to be reined in so they don't accidentally destroy more stuff. Cap thinks it's better to prioritize freedom over safety. Philosophical debate ensues. The only way I could see Lane possibly misunderstanding this film this much is if she was deliberately trying to hate it or she was lying. I can now see why she never uses examples, because when she does, her opinions on them are complete garbage. So
That's your opinion about her opinion. Congratulations, you have an opinion.
what's her thesis? Why did she make this video? Well, she said that to be a great writer, you must
Why did you make this video?
understand morality as divorced from emotion as humanly possible, putting aside all the dishonesty and the missing
That's true. You should, because if you don't, you won't have morality. You'll have something you create and put on a pedestal and call it morality.
historical knowledge and the terrible analysis throughout this video, and the fact that by the end of the 40 minutes, she still hasn't told us what she considers moral. Can I just say this is insane?
It doesn't matter what she thinks is moral. Oh my gosh. And whatever she says is moral, you're going to disagree because she's conservative and you're not. Ah.
One of the reasons morality is important in the first place is because of human emotion, human feeling. Why are some things bad? Why are they wrong? It's because they harm people. They harm them physically, but
Oh my gosh, you're one of those moralists. Oh my gosh, it's the worst type. The people have no foundation.
equally importantly, they harm them emotionally too. This is why it's wrong to insult people for no reason. It's why it's
What? It's wrong to insult people for no reason. How does that harm them? If you walk up to a random person on the street and say, "You're an idiot," and then you walk away, I was like, "Oh no, he threw I have this bleeding thing when somebody threw a rock." No, he threw an insult at me. What? You're the same people that don't have the backbone to freaking understand what an actual insult is.
Wrong to scare them. Throughout her video, Lane consistently disregards this emotional harm as meaningless and unimportant. She thinks that the Avengers scaring people everywhere they go is fine. It's a remarkably unempathetic and antisocial opinion to have. Yes,
I'm not going to get on the empathy topic because it's a stupid topic to talk about. Oh my gosh.
obviously the fact that the Avengers have a civilian kill count is the bigger issue, but how they make people feel is
A civilian kill count. Every department in every professional industry has a kill count. Done by professionals. On accident or on purpose. Congratulations. You knocked your own argument out of the conversation.
important too. Of course the Avengers being scary is a bad thing. They're meant to inspire hope, not fear. They're supposed to be heroes, not
They're supposed to be the guys that fight the bad guys that nobody else can fight because they don't have the means or the ability to do so. Thanos shows up. Go ahead, U.S. military. You got this. Oh, the entire military is wiped out. How could this have happened? Magic? Modern ballistics. Magic. Modern ballistics. I have no idea. Maybe we should call, I don't know, the magic people and have them come fight the bad magic people. And then maybe this will be a little bit more average and, consistent. But this is the same idiocy of like, well, Superman was fighting, what's his name? General, it's not Knox, whatever the frick his name is, the bad guy, Zod, General Zod. They're fighting General Zod, and Zod grabs Superman and booms him through a building, right? And the building collapses. It's Superman's fault, not Zod's fault. No. It's not Zod's fault. It's obviously Superman's fault, right? It's Superman's fault for being blasted through a building. What is he supposed to do about this? If Zod wants to blow up every single building in the entire city, and you don't have Superman, nobody is stopping him. He will do it. Superman shows up to combat Zod, and what happens? Some buildings fall and collapse, and some people die, versus everybody dying. Zod is prevented from killing everybody, but it's Superman's fault. Do you see how stupid that is? Does nobody understand how stupid that is? That's stupid. If you have Cap and you have Iron Man and you have them on opposite sides, if you pick a side, you have to pick a side and explain why you think that side is correct, and then explain also the other side and why they're incorrect. And then you hear the opposing arguments, and then you are free to change your opinion and change a side. But you have to know and establish why you are going to join one side or the other. Because if you do not, you're not going to have a valid position to hold and not look like a complete moron. In the Superman movie, when Henry Cavill's fighting Zod as Superman, and the government blames him, saying he's a problem, when he saved as many people as he could, and he was trying to negate the one person that was causing all this chaos, maybe they should be thanking him for not just off and I'm going to go sit on a beach. You guys have fun fighting Zod because you're going to lose. Bye-bye. And then good luck. If you can't fight Superman and he was actively like fighting against you, you're not fighting Zod. Sorry. That's just how it is. And if that's going to be the case, then you saying it's all Superman's fault is obviously the dumbest thing you could come up with. But no, please tell me about your morality.
terrors, protectors of the innocent. When they show up, you're supposed to know that everything is going to turn out all right. Let's go back to the thing she said earlier. Civil War is...
It doesn't mean that things won't happen that go wrong. It just means that your odds of succeeding are much higher that the Avengers are there.
full of absurd faux moral complexities that are made up entirely of emotion, which is basically like saying they're made of cotton candy. Hurting people's feelings is wrong. But, not according to Lane, morally complex situations based on how people harm each other emotionally. To her,
If somebody hurts your emotions and then you decide to become a better person because of it, did it harm you or did it help you? I mean, people who, back in my day, got bullied, typically they would get a spine, and then when they're older, they don't get affected by those things. And they're like, I don't care. whatever. Did that harm them? Not in the ultimate sense. Maybe in the initial sense, their emotions got hurt, their little fifis got hurt, but ultimately they became a stronger person because of it, because that's what happens when you come against something you need to overcome. Overcoming a bully is a thing that you could advance from. You can become a better person from. This is not one of those things. So, excuse me if I don't believe a thing you say.
That's pointless. It's ridiculous. The idea that the way two people hurt each other's feelings is important is absurd. That's the sort of person we're dealing with here. Lane is a terrible critic. It's really rare to find somebody who was wrong about...
Insulting somebody is bad. Lane is a terrible critic. The jokes write themselves.
Pretty much everything, and even rarer to find one who's so popular despite that. Yet, here we are. We find a critic who basically never gives examples for anything she says, thinks modern media is degenerate for doing...
Yeah, never gives examples.
The exact same things writers have done for...
As you literally pointed out examples that she gives. But okay.
It disregards emotional pain and trauma as being dumb and unimportant.
They're dumb and unimportant in the grand scheme of things. If you do not have the wherewithal or the mental capacity or strength or anything to actively protect yourself from them, you're going to be in a world of hurt, and it's going to be your fault.
And yet, her videos consistently get hundreds of thousands of views. And God, I didn't even go...
Is this jealousy I smell? Yeah, I'm just upset that she gets better views than me. Okay.
To like a third of what I don't like about this video, like her weird comparisons to Attack on Titan, or the insane in-group bias she has where she seems fine with the protagonist killing anybody as long as they do it to protect their family, or the insanely pretentious presentation she has.
If there's 3 million people out in the world and they're all trying to kill my family, me killing all of them would be morally wrong? I'm confused. If everyone's trying to kill Frank Castle's family and he's protecting them and ends up murdering 95% of criminal organizations on the planet, that's wrong? I'm pretty sure that means he's self-defensing it up, man. Like, I don't... You're making this really tough to be like seeing you as an honest, good person to be criticized by. Like, this is just... Whoo, this is tough.
With the classical piano music at the beginning and the skull and the bookcase and the fact that she pauses the video every 2 minutes to show herself taking a big gulp of tea.
It's a persona! Let her do her thing! Oh my gosh!
But if I went on about all that stuff, this video would be an hour, and at a certain point, we've got to stop. I don't want somebody like this to be one of the big voices in media.
We're way past an hour on my end, buddy, old pal of mine. Like, literally, we're hitting 2 hours, so please wrap this up.
Criticism. She's bad at it. She's worse than just bad. She's actively harmful to the field of critique by filling up
She's actively harmful to the field of critique.
the space with nonsense and
By filling the space with nonsense.
baseless accusations.
And
Seemingly
baseless accusations. That's literally what you did the entire time.
in favor of some sort of weird conservative agenda.
There it is. Political, ideological, emotionally unstable. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm begging you, if you're an aspiring writer, don't get your advice from the second story. There are much, much better writing and critique channels out there. Here, I'll recommend a few. Overly Sarcastic Productions is a big one. If you want some in-depth discussions of tropes and trends, they have a whole playlist of videos doing just that. Red's work was actually what inspired me to make my own video on the debate and switch. Brandon Sanderson is rapidly becoming one of my favorite authors, and I think this is the third time
Brandon Sanderson would probably not disagree with her terribly much, but he's also not a very conflict-oriented person. He's not going to say, necessarily speaking, that somebody's writing is bad. He will just talk about the general trope, and then he'll attack the trope. If you're doing it incorrectly, this, that, or the other. He'll never call out somebody for it. So I don't know how good of critique that is, really. I mean, I like Brandon Sanderson, but I don't know. He's trying to be very middle-of-the-road, milquetoast, fence sitter to the extraordinaire because he wants to be in Hollywood with his work, which I don't blame him for, but I'm just stating a fact. He's just not going to do what you think he's going to do.
I've brought him up in a video now. He's a fantastic writer and a university lecturer who put up his entire series of lectures on writing fantasy and science fiction up on his YouTube channel for free. They're pretty long, but surprisingly entertaining and super useful if you want to write in that genre. Hello Future Me is another good one. He's had some takes over the years.
Maybe not.
I've had some issues with, but he's a great guy and it's a super informative series about how to write good world building.
He's a great guy. He's a terrible critiquer, but he's a great guy. That does not make me like him. Just throwing that out there.
And there's also H-Bomber Guy's wildly entertaining video about Ruby, where he goes super in-depth about why a show that could have ended up being good wasn't. Eris does a great job explaining why Ruby is a boring protagonist and how the show's system of morality is out of whack, two things which feel prescient to this video.
It also might have something to do with the terrible animation, but okay.
Alright, that's it for now. Again, please go check out my Undertale video if you want to see 5 straight hours of me talking about why it's a masterpiece. I'll be releasing another video on the second story pretty soon. She's also made a video on why there haven't been any good fantasy novels since Tolkien, and that's absurd, so I'm gonna dunk on that one a bit too. I promise to not cover her at all after fact. Unless she fires back, then I might. Make sure to look out for that video on Lisa the Painful.
I don't think she thinks of you at all. Just go throw that out there. I just found it funny when I just was like, oh, it's been a boring week. Nothing's really happening. Oh, I heard somebody was upset with, the second story, aka Hilary Lane. Here's where I am. Like, I'm so glad I didn't pick the 2-hour video. That would have to be broken up in parts, and I just have no mood to do that. Also, this is like the what is it? The Binding of Isaac. That's all this looks like. But okay.
Too. It's probably gonna come out sometime early next year. Anyway, with all that said, thank you, goodbye, and I'll see you sometime in the future.
Goodness gracious and great googly moogly. Well, let's try to keep this as close to the 2-hour mark as possible. Wowzers! Yowzers! And all the other things I cannot comprehend how we got to this place. So hopefully you understood more of it than I did. Feel free to go check out Hilary Lane's channel. She's always in the description for my videos because I think she's somebody you should check out. If you don't feel like checking her out or following her or whatever, then don't do it, I suppose. But if you watch her videos and you came to the conclusion I did, I don't know where this guy watched videos or thought he watched videos or how he missed all the nuance and context, but apparently he did. So, yay. This video I will post in the original video link in the description, so you can participate in that if that's what you prefer, to watch it another time, a second time, third time, whatever, and come to your own conclusions. Knock yourself out. I didn't find particularly any value in it, and I just wasted 2 hours of my life to make this video, so yay, give a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz if you feel the need to. And I haven't done a long form content like this in a hot minute, so hopefully it's enjoyable for you folks. And thanks once again for visiting me and giving me some of your precious time. Check the description for socials and for content creators to check out and businesses that you might want to support. So thanks everybody, and once again, remember, my friends, walk in the light.